This conference will now be recorded.
All right, so today is Thursday, June 18th, and as always, everything that we're going to be talking about today is for educational purposes only, and nothing is intended as any type of investment advice. So I have a lot of sideless stocks today. We have a bunch of cheaper stocks that have a little bit of potential, and then we got a few other things going on as well. But the first thing I'm going to be looking at is ENPH. So if I go back and we take a look at the prints from this morning, you can see basically since 43, there really has been nothing but buying, on the bigger print side of things. And then if we come over here and we look at the actual print personality, these 44 prints, and of course the trade's over, but these 44 prints I absolutely love, because if you look at the reaction that came afterwards, we started to see some selling, and then we started to get some selling that came in at that 44, those riders that were coming back down. So overall, it needed a big pullback from the prints that started at 43.50, which we can see is happening right at this moment. And then once we kind of find that bottom, that's what I'm going to be looking for, is a trigger back towards that upside, because based off of almost everything that I've been seeing this morning, I'm seeing that buying. Now, unfortunately, 45 is right above. Remember, 45 is going to be a huge psychological number, so we definitely want to keep that in mind. But a trigger back towards that upside, like I said, the buying is 100% there. We just definitely need a bigger pullback than we've seen, just basically because we have not seen that pullback come into it yet. ALPN, next one, and another one where it's just, I swear, this, oops, wrong one. AESE, ALPN we're going to get to in a second. But another one where it's just the second I'm going to start a meeting, you end up getting that move coming in. And you can see it says 6 o'clock right here. That is obviously 9 o'clock. But coming back up, the only thing that I'm not that happy about is the amount of building that I saw underneath that 350 level, because the prints are going a long way right now, but that does not sustain a cheaper stock like this. So you need to see more. Now, as we came to that 350, you can definitely see we have new buying coming in there. And then really what's even more important, now obviously we need our controlling prints, but what's even more important is I love the burst of positions that came in around those 370 area, and then you can see 359 to 370. It's not all the same burst, but at the same time, it's showing us that they're still continuously putting that money into it. But with these cheaper stocks, remember, if we want a price target of 4, we want to see the buying for 450, and I just have not seen that yet. Now it is continuing to push, and once again, I do want you to realize that, and so far, based off the print personality that we have this morning, a few prints really do go a long way. But at the same time, with a cheaper stock like this, we want to find something that just shows us this is so obvious. We don't want to have to go off of 4 prints for a $3.50 stock. All right, so this is definitely one of my favorites that we've had coming into this morning. I do want to see a lot more coming into it. Now let's go to ALPN. So I was able to get shares this morning. Unfortunately, a lot of the sideless stocks that we're going to go to in a second, I was not able to get anything from. Some, I think 1 or 2 is still actually pending. But if we look at ALPN, being able to short this thing, I just haven't seen enough coming in over this 15 level to show it, to warrant it being able to hold. I mean, you have a little bit of buying here and there, and once again, based off the personality, a few prints are going to go a long way. But you can see as we were coming back down, somebody really kind of wanted to get out. You're talking about from 16 all the way to 15 within 1 minute. Which tells us obviously number one is going to have a huge range. So this 30-cent average is not going to mean anything to us today. But number 2 is that 15 is a very hard level to hold. I put this in the food, God, there we go. But I put this in the food for thought yesterday. What is, based off of people's experience, what's the biggest psychological level? Does anyone have an answer for me? So I saw a few different answers coming in there, but I want you guys to understand something. Our job, the reason that I focus on patterns so that, with such an obsession, is because when you have an obsessed pattern that needs to be the same thing day in and day out, how easy is it to see when something's different? So 5, okay, I'm going to get to that. But it's so easy because you're looking for the same thing day in and day out. So when something changes or gives you a different reaction, it just lights up. And that's why I tell you guys, and I put so much emphasis on making sure that you have these patterns, okay? And you have that habit that goes in, because those patterns and habits, the second something changes, you're going to notice immediately. If you do things differently every single day, it's impossible to notice when something is blatantly obvious. So you know what my number is? I know 5. Yes, 5 is definitely a big psychological level, and this, as of recent, has been a very hard thing for it to be able to hold. Not 15, 20. We've talked about it before. The answer is 20. Something about the 20 level over the past, I'm going to say at least 6 months, has just made it one of those levels where you could have the best prints in the world, but it doesn't leave. Okay, you have the best. That's the thing. It's the most games you're going to see at any spot within levels, and of course any level. But just keep that in mind. Is that when you're at a 20 level somewhere, yeah, you might get the best short-term prints in the world, and it just sits there. Okay, you get the best buying prints that shows you it needs to go above. It goes above, comes right back below. There's just a ton of games at that level, and that's where that conversation came from yesterday that I put in the food for thought. Is the fact that knowing and just watching these things over and over again and noticing the little intricacies is what makes a good trader into a great trader. So definitely try to think about that a little bit today. But as I said, I don't see enough here to be able to hold above that 15 level. And obviously, these riders that are coming in, you can see there's just not much. This 16, I'm going to have to assume was a covering point. Because you're talking about a dollar move underneath, and it's really not that much, even though 2,500 shares is a lot based off its personality. But watch that 15 level, watch it coming underneath. Hopefully you were able to get shares. I'm a little bit shocked right now that we didn't get anything at 15, so that's definitely something to keep in mind. But I just don't see it. I just don't see it being able to hold. All right, next thing coming on is our side list, HUSN. All right, so this is another one where we talked about this the other day. It has a lot of potential. Okay, so it has the ability to be able to get back up here because you can see the highest volume coming in, and that push basically brought us to that 275 point. Then we started to see that selling coming off, but there's not a ton of selling. We're still getting some decent building around this too. So it has the potential to be able to come back up, but remember that trigger is going to have to be very, very strong. We want to see, obviously once the market opens, we're going to see a lot more volume, but if we were looking for pre-market, we want to see something in, the 175,000 range, somewhere in that area to be able to even get close to being able to break this congestion that we have right here and get back up to that point. Obviously, the prints are going to mean everything, but right now it's just a little bit mixed, and that's why it's, not for nothing, the setup itself and then also the prints that we're seeing coming into it this morning. That's why it's on our side list. FAMI. Now, I had this on my list for early this morning. I'm kind of losing interest because of the fact, first of all, if it comes down to this one, once the market opens, if this thing starts to run, it's going to get halted. You do not want to get halted the second the market opens because then you basically have to sit there and wait and you can't really make any type of other moves. So this is going on like the side list. It was number 2 on my side list, but I'm bringing it all the way down towards the end just because of that, that exact situation. Now, there was some decent buying as we were coming up to 150. We had some decent buying at that 175 point, but overall, it's just not. Like I said, the setup itself to focus on this first thing coming into the morning, let's say we want to hit that double top. Well, if it goes to that double top as soon as the market opens, guess what? We get into a halt, and that's not what we're looking for. So that's why it's going to be on the lower side of things. Now, don't get me wrong. If you trade 5 stocks at a time, go ahead. It's up to you, but it's something that you have to be able to think about as you're going into setting up your game plan for the morning. Next thing is our CARV. So CARV yesterday, we know this thing can move if it wants to. All right. It doesn't have its average. I'm not sure what happened here, but what the situation is going. But yesterday, we know that this thing can move. We can get some really nice moves that come out of it. It just needs something. And this is, kind of the pattern that we've seen this morning so far is we got a lot of stuff that's moving, but the prints themselves, I just haven't really, this is the same type of deal. If we get any type of real controlling prints that come into this, those controlling prints are going to go a long, long way. And that's what I'm looking for. I just don't see it yet. I mean, right here, the buying that we saw right above that 9 level shows us that we should have no problem getting back towards that 10, but there's just not enough there. So we don't want to base our first trade or basically base anything off of the fact that something could happen. We want to make sure our first trade of the day is something completely solid, high percentage. All right, and without those controlling prints, that's not something, it's something that we're going to be looking at, but we need to make sure we understand what we're looking for. I talked about it yesterday in the chat. There was, I forget which stock it was. Yesterday was a crazy day, but we're one of those cheaper stocks, and I told you it's going to need those shorter term prints that say now. So when you know what to look for, once you see them, guess what? Now it's trade time. But if those things don't come in and doesn't fit your game plan perfectly, it is not something that you want to jump in right in the morning because remember, there's going to be tons of trade trades today. So many trades that you're not going to be able to catch all of them. So the biggest thing to do is to make sure, and especially, I know I keep saying summertime, although it really hasn't really looked until the afternoons like summertime. Okay, but there's going to get to a point where there's only, let's just make up a number. There's 100 trades that happen in a day. We're going to start to see it come down to 75, to 50, to 30, and things kind of, level out around a lower amount. So it's so important to make sure that we're focusing on our high percentage trades first thing in the morning. All right, guys, now anything else out there that I missed? I don't know if you guys can tell I'm excited, but it is so wonderful to have my computer back. Anything else out there that I missed? All right, so let's get ready for our morning. We know what we need to do. We've already talked about what we need to focus on. I will talk to everybody in the chat, and happy trading.